Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Catfish. Slimy catfish. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again here with Salt Strong Unchurched. And yes, the title of this podcast is Catfish. And if you're anything like me in terms of a saltwater angler, we don't like catfish very much, do we? No, and if you don't know, they're incredibly slimy. They are the bottom feeders, so they're taking your bait. You think you have a nice fish on, and it's a catfish. They can literally slice your hand. They can slice through a boot. I mean, they can slice through most things. I mean, essentially, their fins are like razor blades to protect themselves, but just a pain to get off the hook. They're like, they slime up your line. They slime up your boat. They're not much fun in terms of saltwater catfish. Now, there are some nice freshwater catfish, but we're not going to talk about the different types of catfish here. I'm talking about catfish in our lives. And I was listening a couple Sundays ago to Joel Osteen. I listened to his podcast on occasion, and he had a story in there that I really, really loved, and I ended up researching it. And the story was about the codfish and the catfish. And there was a middle school that was using this story to help their students become stronger and have more of a growth mindset, and to basically just try to deflect and not let all of the haters and the negativity and the teasing and the bullying get to them, knowing that that's just part of life, regardless of how much we try to stop it, regardless of how much we try to shield our children from it, regardless if they're in the nicest private school in the world or a public school or even homeschooling. That's just it. And sadly, it's just part of how we're wired as humans. I don't know that it'll ever change. So if knowing that, let's at least find ways to adapt with it. And this story is it. So this is a true story, by the way. So quite a few years back, the codfish industry, that's an industry there in the Northwest coast, it was in serious trouble. And here's why. Everyone liked the cod. It was a popular fish. It went for pretty good money, at the markets, but it was really, really tough to ship. And obviously with fish, you want it fresh, right? No one wants a fish that is just, feels like it's been sitting outside for a long time or is mushy. Just no one will pay a good price for that fish. And yet that was the problem. So they were having trouble shipping this thing all the way over to the East Coast. They tried freezing it. And by the time it got there and they started selling it and people were eating it, everyone was complaining that it lost its flavor when it was frozen. So you cannot freeze this type of fish, this particular cod. And then they tried a couple other options, and they finally said, well, hey, let's try shipping the cod live, like in saltwater tanks. And it was valuable enough where they could do that. So imagine them shipping off in boats or planes, a bunch of cod all there alive still in saltwater tanks. But here's the bad news. By the time they got there, the cod had really just become kind of dormant, and the meat was actually soft and kind of mushy. So it actually did not work. It actually hurt the whole situation. And so finally someone came up with a solution and says, well, hey, like catfish are the natural enemies of codfish. Catfish and codfish hate each other. And so they actually placed a few catfish in every one of these big tanks with all these codfish. And so the catfish would literally chase all these codfish around the tanks the entire time that they were being transported. So imagine this now, instead of all these codfish just sitting there dormant, waiting to go to the market in a big saltwater tank, they had just a couple of catfish sitting there chasing all these fish around, making them super active. And it actually worked. The cod actually arrived in better condition than ever. They tasted better, and that was the solution. And here's why this story is so important and practical and real. We all have some sort of natural enemy or someone who is hating on us. or someone who is trash talking or whatever it might be in our lives. And we really have two choices. One, we can let it bother us and we can just give up, or two, we can let it propel us and make us stronger. The same way these codfish became stronger and a better version of themselves, ironically, just by being chased around and making sure these catfish couldn't get them. And I got a story I'll share with you. There are two in particular here at Salt Strong where this has happened. The first one was in the early days, we started a Facebook group. It's still there today. It's got 95,000 people or something in it as I'm recording this. And in the early days, though, we didn't have that many people. I don't know, it was 7,000, 8,000. And that was big. There weren't many fishing Facebook groups at the time. We were one of the first ones to really start growing like that. And we made a rule, just kind of a line in the sand. It was based on our kind of moral compass and our core beliefs on what we wanted in terms of a group. And we said there's no negativity and there's no belittling. And the third one was there's no cursing. And that had never been done before. I mean, we're talking about fishermen here, right? And really, we're talking about adults and fishermen who in this day and age, sadly, like to curse a lot. And I'm not against someone cursing if they stub their toe or get hurt. I've done that myself. On the other hand, when it comes to online communication, I have yet to see a conversation that has been improved by cursing. And if you're doing that, I would challenge you to maybe stop. And I think it looks childish. I think it looks silly coming from adults that are sitting there having to curse online. Once again, if you can show me where it has enhanced a conversation, I'll eat my words. But I've yet to see where any online conversation has been enhanced with curse words or lots of curse words in any way, shape, or form. And usually it does the opposite, especially when there's any sort of heated exchange or just miscommunication online and you start cursing. It usually just makes the problem worse and creates fights and controversy, etc. Not to mention you get kids and stuff watching. It's not helpful. I don't think I've ever cursed online. And here's why. Like, once again, if a brick drops on my bare toe, I might yell out a curse word. It's very possible. But when it comes to online, you literally have to type each little, like letter and then each word. And then you have to look at it normally before you hit enter, before it ever even hits that thing. And then you even have the chance to go edit it. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can retract that. You can't retract it once it's blurted out of your mouth from a brick flying off the roof and hitting your toe. You can't really take that back. You can apologize, but you can't take it back. You have every single opportunity to either delete and go back or even edit what you post online. So anyhow, I share that with you because that is a challenge. This is also part of something I would love for you to take seriously because it just drives me crazy when I see all these people cursing, and then kids look up to this and say, "Oh, cool! It must be cool to curse all the time." And I don't know, I once again haven't seen it really enhance much, if anything, ever. And if anything, it just makes us look kind of silly and negative. Anywho, we made that rule in our Facebook group, no cursing, and we stuck with it. And we were finally, and most people were kind of behaving, if you will, and abiding by those rules. And then we had a couple people, and these were pretty big, like influencers, meaning these were legit anglers. They weren't just some crazy people that came in. They were people that I knew, and they were people that had influence in the fishing community. And they joined our group, which was exciting. We're starting to get some good anglers in there, and this was going to help us out. And there's two in particular that really just started cursing up a storm and dropping F-bombs. Like, it was almost like every time they posted or made comments, they're just cursing. And, it was new. The rule was new. So we did give them a warning. And then the second time happened, we just kicked them out. No email, no warning after that, just one quick warning. And then they were gone. And this caused like a firestorm, right? So these people are sending us direct messages. They're ticked off as can be. And we just said, "Hey guys, it's a rule. We warned you." And it is what it is. Sorry, you're out. You can't come back. And as easy as it sounds now on that decision, at the time we were a brand new business. I mean, we were trying to look cool, right? We were trying not to have enemies, right? We were trying not to have haters. No one wants to attract that on purpose, especially when you're trying to grow a business. And that was one of those moments for Luke and I. Like, it was a big decision. We're like, all right, are we going to stand behind this, or are we just going to kind of let it slide so we can keep these kind of influencers in our group? Like, this could end up hurting us big time. Like, this could hurt our image, and maybe all the good anglers don't even want to join Salt Strong because of this. I mean, this was, and at the time, it felt like a really, really big decision, and it was. And we said, you know what? It's our rules, it's our beliefs, and we believe that God was going to protect us and use this in the right way if we just stuck by our morals. That if we do the right thing, you do the right thing long enough, that you're going to be just A-okay. And I still believe that to this day. And so we stuck with it. We kicked them out, did not ever let them back in. They were basically banned for life. And guess what happened? They started going out to all the other fishing Facebook groups and bashing us. And I started seeing it. I was like, oh gosh, here it comes. But the funny thing happened. So as they're bashing us, saying, oh, we're Bible beaters, and they kicked us out and they don't allow free speech and all that. Thankfully, there's some other people in these groups saying, well, hey, what happened? I thought Salt Strong were good guys. Like, what happened? And then they didn't say exactly what they did. Obviously, they were trying to make themselves look good, but they're just like, all we did was just drop a few F-bombs and they kicked us out. And there was, of course, some of the really negative people that we didn't even want in our group anyways, like, oh man, a bunch of pansies, screw them. I mean, it was what you would imagine a bunch of, adolescent boys would say, oh, screw them. They're Bible beaters, whatever. But the funny thing happened, there was a lot of good people on the other side of the spectrum that said, what? They kicked you out for dropping F-bombs and cursing? That actually sounds like a place I want to be. And those two people in particular helped recruit so many good members to our group, it wasn't even funny. So God literally used these two catfish, tying the whole story back in. These are two catfish that were annoying. They wanted to come after us. They were giving us threats and cursing all along the way. They used these two catfish that were going out there and telling all these other groups how bad we were because we kicked them out for cursing, and ended up attracting all the good people to us. I mean, that was one of the biggest boosts we had in a long time of new members, and not just new members, great members, the kind of members that didn't want to be around people like that didn't want to be around cursing. And as soon as we saw that, we knew, one, that we had done the right thing, and two, that was going to be our policy going forward. And it eventually morphed into no warning. It was just, here's our rules. And obviously, if you say, I won't even say it, but the other word for a donkey, I don't want to have this episode get flagged for obscene content. But if, the other word for donkey, something like that, it's kind of in the gray area, and we might just give a warning and say, hey, just keep it 100% clean. But if you're dropping F-bombs and stuff like that, there's no warning anymore. It's just, you're gone, you're banned, you're done. And we've seen it over and over and over again, where every time we do that, those same people, these negative people, the kind that feel like they have to drop F-bombs in every sentence and conversation, they go out and they bash us to other groups and other places. And when people find out why, everyone's like, oh, that sounds like the place I want to be. That sounds like a pretty cool community. Let me go join it. And every time it's helped us. And so I share that with you because, God has a plan. And many times God will use the haters in your life, or the negative people, or the people that are bashing you, to actually propel you. Could have been complacent like these caught and just said, oh yeah, it just is what it is. But no, many times God, if we let him and we stick with what we know is right. And this, I'm sharing the same stuff with like my daughter, Sean, who's got a few haters. Like, just remember what they're saying, and not to like obsess over the negative, but just like let that propel you. And as long as you're doing the right thing and you're following what you believe God has led you to do, it will all work out, and those haters will propel you. This Unchurched podcast is probably one of the other best examples. So when we first decided to do it, it was a big deal, right? We had not proclaimed that we were even really Christians up until that point. It was on our website, like, on our about page, but not everyone even goes there. But in terms of having a podcast where we're creating content about being Christians and this whole unchurched thing, this was completely new. This was uncharted territories. And as I, told some of my friends about it, like the idea, they're like, I wouldn't do that. And all these little doubts started getting in my head. I'm like, man, maybe I shouldn't do it. I mean, I'm not a pastor. I don't really know what even I'm doing, but I just, every time I go down that negative path, God would just lift me up. And like, it was so clear. I've never had that much clarity on something that I knew I needed to do. When you just feel it, and every time you kind of start making excuses, you just get these signs, and this just almost like this feeling in your chest and in your body that, man, I need to do this. This is what God is leading me to do. And every single time I'd hear negative feedback and people saying, well, why would you do that? Like, how is this going to help grow your business? It's only going to hurt it. People are going to be offended. People are going to be ticked. They're going to turn you off. They're going to cancel you. I heard all of that stuff. And it got to me. I'll be honest. Like, that was a reason it took a long time from us saying we're going to do it to actually doing it and publishing that first episode. Heck, I remember Pastor Johnny was the very first guest. We recorded that podcast. It was called Is God Real? And I sat on that thing for like a month before we actually sent it out. So we finally have the courage to send it out. I prayed like a madman on that one, and everything just kept leading to this. This is what you're supposed to do. I will protect you. I will propel you from this. We just did it, and we were so nervous, and sent the email out. It was like 70,000 people got this email. Is God real? And that was the podcast. And I just sat there waiting, and it didn't take long. Before it was a 30-minute podcast, and within seconds, people were already replying. Some negatives, obviously the negative ones came first, and those are the ones I remember. I don't remember the people's names, but I remember what they said. And I still have one highlighted, and they're my catfish, right? And this catfish, I'll just call them, that's their name, because I honestly don't remember the name, but it was a guy. And he hadn't even listened to the podcast. He saw the email, is God real? And, a quick little summation about, hey, we feel like we've been called by God to do this, just to do something on Sunday. And even said in the email, hey, we're not asking you to listen to this if you don't want to. It's just what we feel like we're called to do. If you don't like it, just like any piece of content, just like if you're a surf fisherman and we're doing something offshore, you don't like it, just skip it. You don't need to say anything. And yet, obviously, people do when you start bringing a religion or faith into the conversation. And he said in his email, he says, mark my words, you will be out of business in 6 months from now because of this. And I will never forget that. And that was a catfish moment. And I replied back to him in a very, I wanted to give him, a little piece of my mind, if you will. But I didn't. I just said, hey, I really appreciate you. I'll be praying for you. It's almost like he wanted to fight clearly. And I just said, you know what, I really appreciate your candid feedback. And, I'll be praying for you. I hope we can win you back in the future. And just left it at that. Never heard back from the guy, from Catfish. He went back down to the bottom feeder. And I remember that quote. And there was a couple others similar, like, mark my word, you'll be out of business, and you're going to alienate every single person in your whole list. This is going to destroy your business. I heard that multiple times, and it hurt in the beginning. I'm acting like I'm a tough guy, like it didn't let it hurt, like mess with me, and it did. I mean, just like anything, and same with like my daughter Shauna, or if you guys have kids, or you're personally going through any kind of bullying or having haters out there, yeah, it's going to get to you. No one's just completely immune to that stuff. Even I heard a little interview with Taylor Swift. I mean, someone who's got a lot of people who love her, obviously, but also has the haters. And she's like, even it still gets to me a little bit. It just, every year it's less and less, where I'm just like, whatever. But she even says, I still remember some of the hateful ones, the ones that kind of stung, but I use those to propel me forward. And those are the catfish in your life, right? The ones that are just kind of silly and, just made up stuff that isn't like, what are you talking about? But the ones that sting a little bit, those are the catfish, right? I mean, catfish sting. Those are the ones that are going to propel you. And many times God is using these haters, he's using these catfish, these enemies, if you will, to propel you and to lift you up and to make you stronger, and really just to help you even get focused. Like once I started getting some of those negative ones, I was focused to make sure that they were never going to be right. When I like that person that says, mark my words, you'll be out of business 6 months, you better believe I'm looking at the counter. I was like, I'm going to prove this sucker wrong. We're not only not going to be in business in 6 months, we are going to be way bigger and more and making a bigger impact than we are today. And we are. I mean, that was over 2 years ago, and we're still in business, and we're bigger than we ever have been today, and making a bigger impact. Got more employees that were impacting their families, and more insider members than ever before. So I love those haters. I love those catfish in my life, and there's many more over the years. Even a girl that I dated that broke up with me, when I was in my 20s. Man, I used that. And, she had nicely said something like, oh, I just don't see this going anywhere. I don't see you going anywhere. I'm basically calling me the loser the nicest way possible. In my early years when I was struggling to get where I wanted to go. And I used that to propel me. And it wasn't like so I could rub it in her face per se, just like these catfish. I'm not going to go back and find that guy's email and say, well, hey, you're wrong. No, it's not to do that. That's just starting another fight that's unnecessary. I don't believe that's what God wants us to do. I'm just saying to use those people as fuel, as energy to propel us and to take us to the next level. So I hope this helps. And especially if you're dealing with something, of no matter what your age is or what you're doing, there's usually going to be some sort of catfish in your life, someone who is just trying to bring you down and trying to mess with you and trying to be a hater. Find some way to let that propel you forward. Find some way to let their words or their actions take you to a whole new level, not so you can sit there and rub it in their face, but so that you can become a better version of yourself and to get where God is trying to get you. Once again, there are times where God is purposely putting some of these catfish around you just so that they will move you up and propel you forward. So hope this was a good one for you guys. The catfish and the codfish. Love you guys, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. 'Cause fishing